April 16, 1945. A forest floor somewhere south of Iserlohn, within the collapsing ruins of the Ruhr pocket. The world has been reduced to the smell of damp pine needles, cold steel, and fear. For Anneliese Schmidt, a 21-year-old Nachhinekämpferin, a signals auxiliary for the Wehrmacht, the universe is the size of this shallow trench scraped into the dark German soil. Her felt and leather boots are soaked through, the cold a permanent ache in her bones. For 3 days, food has been a rumor. Water is what you can lick from the leaves before dawn. The static in her headset is a constant, desperate hiss, a sound that has replaced the voices of command, of order, of the Germany she was told was invincible. Now there is only the static and the intermittent, terrifying rumble of American artillery that feels less like a sound and more like the world's final heartbeat, growing slower, heavier. She clutches the stock of her Karabiner 98K, a rifle she has never fired at a living soul. It feels alien in her hands, a farmer's tool for a war that was supposed to be fought by heroes, not by starving girls in oversized Feldgrau coats. Beside her, a boy from the Hitlerjugend, no older than 15, shivers uncontrollably, his face a pale mask of dirt and terror. He keeps whispering the name Mutti under his breath. Anneliese wants to tell him to be quiet, to be brave, but the words feel like lies in her mouth. What bravery is left here? They are the leftovers of an army, the dregs of a nation, encircled and being squeezed into nothing. The air hangs thick with the metallic tang of cordite and the sweet, sickly odor of decay that clings to the woods. The crackle in her ears changes, not static, a voice, American. It is calm, distorted by radio waves, but terrifyingly close. It is not shouting, it is conversational. That is the worst part. It speaks of coordinates, of movement, of things happening just beyond the tree line that she cannot see. Her own commander, a gaunt Oberleutnant with eyes that have seen too much, crawls over to her. "Anything?" he asks, his voice a dry rasp. She shakes her head. "Nothing from command, Herr Oberleutnant, only them." He doesn't need to ask who them is. He stares out into the dense, dripping forest, his jaw tight. They are ghosts, hunted by an enemy they can only hear. An enemy with full bellies and endless ammunition. An enemy that speaks in calm, confident tones over the very airwaves they are supposed to control. Then a new sound, the crunch of boots on twigs. Not the desperate shuffle of their own retreating men. This is a steady, deliberate tread. The sound of men who are not afraid of what they will find. The boy beside her stops shivering and goes rigid. The Oberleutnant slowly raises his MP40 submachine gun, the movement stiff and final. You can feel the tension as a physical presence, a pressure in the air that makes it hard to breathe. The woods are silent, save for that methodical crunching, coming from all sides. They are not being attacked, they are being collected. Suddenly, figures emerge from the gloom. They are huge, larger than life, and their olive-drab uniforms, their M1 helmets dripping with rain. They move with an unnerving ease, rifles held at a low ready, not even aimed. They don't need to aim. The fight is over. One of them, a sergeant with a square jaw and tired eyes, steps forward. He isn't angry. He looks bored, weary. He sees the Oberleutnant, the boy, and Anneliese. He sees their worn-out uniforms, their hollowed-out faces. He gestures with his M1 Garand. "Okay, folks, drop 'em. Es ist vorbei." The English words hang in the damp air. The Oberleutnant hesitates for a heartbeat, a last flicker of defiance in his eyes. He looks at the boy, then at Anneliese. He slowly, deliberately places his weapon on the muddy ground. The boy's rifle clatters down next to it. Anneliese's hands feel numb. Her rifle seems impossibly heavy. She lets it fall. The sound is pathetic, a dull thud that marks the end of her war, the end of her world. The American sergeant nods, his gaze passing over her without any specific interest. He is just counting heads. She is no longer a signals operator, no longer a German. She is just another piece of human debris to be cleared from the battlefield. The surrender is not a single dramatic moment. It is a slow, grinding process of humiliation. They are motioned out of the woods, their hands clasped behind their heads. Annalise's arms ache, the position forcing her to stare at the mud churning under her boots. The forest opens into a clearing, and she sees it for the first time, the sheer scale of the defeat. A river of gray uniforms flows down a muddy road, thousands of them. Old men from the Volkssturm, young boys from the Hitlerjugend, weary, battle-hardened soldiers of the Wehrmacht, and women like her, the auxiliaries, the nurses, the secretaries. They are a silent, shuffling column of ghosts, a nation's failed ambition on the march to nowhere. The Americans flank them, moving with the casual authority of men who have already won and are now simply managing the paperwork. Their captors are a sensory assault. The smell of them is different, not the familiar scent of ersatz coffee and black bread, but something else. Cigarettes that smell rich and sweet, the scent of what Annalise realizes is real soap, a faint, clean fragrance that feels impossibly foreign. Their trucks, olive-drab GMCs and Jeeps, rumble past, engines purring with a power their own fuel-starved Panzers had long since lost. It is the smell and sound of a world with no shortages, a world that has not been bombed into rubble. It is the smell of victory. They are marched for hours until they reach a collection point in a vast, muddy field. Here, the processing begins. You are a cog in a great machine now, a machine designed for disassembly. Shouted orders in English, occasionally translated by a harried-looking German officer who has already surrendered, echo across the field. Line up, single file, alles in eine Reihe. They are separated, men to the left, women to the right. Annalise is pushed into a line with other women. Nurses in stained white aprons, Luftwaffe-Helferinnen in their blue-gray uniforms, switchboard operators like herself. None of them speak. Their faces are blank masks, eyes downcast. The shared shame is a heavy blanket. A tired American NCO, a Sergeant Frank Costello from the 9th Army, oversees the women's line. He has a clipboard and a fountain pen, and he looks at them with an expression of profound exhaustion. He is not cruel, he is not kind, he is simply efficient. He has been processing prisoners for weeks, ever since they crossed the Rhine. To him, these women are just more inventory. He gestures to the front of the line. A female soldier, a WAC, begins a perfunctory search of each woman. Pockets are emptied, a family photograph, a half-eaten crust of bread, a letter that will never be sent, all tossed into a grimy canvas sack. When it's Annalise's turn, the WAC's hands are firm, impersonal. She pats down Annalise's coat, her tunic. The intimacy of the search is a violation that leaves her feeling hollowed out. All she has left is a small, tarnished locket hidden under her collar, a gift from her mother. The WAC's fingers brush against it, hesitate, and then move on. A tiny, unacknowledged act of mercy. They wait for hours under a weeping gray sky. The mud seeps into their boots, a constant, chilling dampness. The hunger is a physical pain now, a twisting knot in her stomach. Finally, a field kitchen is set up. They are given a ladle of something warm in a tin cup. It's a thin stew, but it has pieces of real meat in it. Annalise eats it slowly, mechanically. The flavor is overwhelming. It is the first decent food she has tasted in months, and the simple act of eating it feels like another form of surrender. They are accepting the enemy's sustenance, acknowledging their total dependence. As dusk settles, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple, the order comes to move. They are herded towards a line of waiting GMC trucks. The sheer number of vehicles is astounding. They stretch down the road as far as the eye can see, an endless convoy of olive-drab steel. Costello watches them go, ticking off numbers on his clipboard. All right, get 'em loaded. 25 to a truck. Next batch is coming in from Hagen. Annalise is pushed from behind, stumbling up into the dark, cavernous interior of a truck. The wooden benches are hard and cold. She is pressed shoulder to shoulder with 25 other women, strangers united by their defeat. The heavy canvas flap is pulled down, plunging them into near total darkness. The engine roars to life, the truck lurches forward, and they are carried off into the night, prisoners in a foreign land that was, only yesterday, their home. The journey is a disorienting blur of darkness, the constant jostling of the truck and the low, mournful rumble of the engine. There is no conversation inside the canvas shell. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, damp wool, and the faint metallic scent of fear. Sleep is impossible. With every lurch and sway, Annalise is thrown against the woman next to her, a stranger's bones pressing against her own. She watches slivers of the German countryside flash by through a small gap in the canvas, shattered villages, skeletal trees against a moonlit sky. It is a landscape of ghosts, her landscape. After what feels like an eternity, the convoy slows. The trucks stop, engines idling, then cutting out one by one, leaving an echoing silence broken only by shouted commands in English. The canvas flap is thrown open, and harsh floodlights blind them. Raus! Everybody out! Let's go, Fräuleins, move it! They stumble out, stiff and sore, into a new, terrifying world. They are in a massive, open plain bordered by the dark, shimmering ribbon of the Rhine River. Before them, stretching for what seems like miles, is a city of tents and barbed wire. This is it. A Rheinwiesenlager, a Rhine meadow camp. The name sounds almost poetic, a cruel joke for the reality of the place. It is an enormous pen, a vast holding area for the tidal wave of German prisoners. The ground is a sea of mud, churned into a thick, clinging paste by thousands of boots and tires. The air is cold, biting, with the dampness rolling off the river. They are marched through a gate in a towering barbed wire fence. The wire is new. It glints menacingly under the floodlights. This is not a temporary stop. This is a destination. The processing starts all over again, but this time it is more organized, more permanent. They are led into a large tent where they are registered. Name, rank, unit. Annalise Schmidt, Nachrichtenhelferin, 53rd Signal Regiment. An American clerk with spectacles types her information onto a card. He doesn't look at her. She is given a small metal tag with a number stamped on it, 74321. This is her new name. She is assigned to a tent in Compound C. It's a large, brown canvas tent designed for 16 soldiers, but there are already nearly 30 women crammed inside. They lie on the bare ground, some with a single, thin blanket. The faces that look up at her as she enters are hollowed and etched with a profound, soul-deep weariness. There are no introductions. There is only the silent acknowledgement of shared misery. She finds a small space near the canvas wall and collapses, pulling her thin coat tight around her. The cold from the ground seeps straight into her bones. Sleep does not come. She lies awake, listening to the symphony of the camp, the coughing and quiet sobbing of the women in her tent, the tramp of guards' boots outside, the distant, mournful horn of a barge on the Rhine. The days that follow bleed into one another, a monotonous cycle of hunger, cold, and boredom. The food is meager, a slice of black bread in the morning, a watery soup at night. The latrines are open pits, a constant source of stench and humiliation. There is nothing to do but wait. Wait for news, wait for food, wait for the war to officially end, wait for a future that is impossible to imagine. The women rarely speak of the past, of their homes or families. To speak of it is to invite a pain that is too great to bear. They exist in a state of suspended animation, their spirits eroding with each passing day. The dirt becomes a part of them. It is under their fingernails, in their hair, ground into the very fabric of their clothes. They have forgotten what it feels like to be clean. The memory of soap, of warm water, belongs to another lifetime. Then, on the fourth day, something changes. A group of American WACs, accompanied by armed guards, enter their compound. They are led by a stern-looking female captain. She carries a clipboard. Her uniform is clean, pressed. She is an emissary from another universe. An order is barked out by a German-speaking sergeant. Alle Frauen vom Zelt 12 bis 18 antreten. All women from tents 12 to 18 fall in. Annalise and the women from her tent are herded out into the muddy expanse. There is a nervous energy in the air. What is this? A transfer? Interrogation? The WWII captain speaks in clipped, efficient English, which the sergeant translates. You are being processed for delousing and hygiene protocols. You will follow the guards to the sanitation block. You will comply with all instructions. Move out. Sanitation block. The words mean little to them. They are just another set of orders in a long line of orders. They are formed into a miserable column and marched towards a long wooden barracks at the edge of the compound, a building they had not paid much attention to before. Steam is billowing from a chimney on its roof. As they get closer, a strange, unfamiliar sound reaches them over the camp's dull roar, the sound of running water. The sanitation block is a long, narrow building with a concrete floor. As they are pushed inside, the change in atmosphere is immediate and shocking. The air is warm, thick with steam, and the sharp, antiseptic smell of lye and disinfectant. It's a clean smell, an aggressive cleanliness that feels alien after weeks of living in filth. The sound of water is louder in here, a constant, powerful rush from somewhere deeper within the structure. American WWIIs in practical fatigues line the walls, their faces impassive, professional. They look through the German women, not at them. For Annalise and the others, the warmth is the first shock. It's a cloying, heavy heat that makes their damp wool uniforms feel suffocating. A stout WWII sergeant with her sleeves rolled up steps forward. She speaks slowly, loudly, as if addressing children. The German-speaking NCO translates, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. You will remove all of your clothing, everything. Place it in the sacks provided. You will then proceed to the showers. There will be no exceptions. A wave of shock and disbelief ripples through the assembled women. A murmur of protest rises, a collective intake of breath. Undress? Here? In front of each other? In front of these American women? The idea is a profound violation. In their filth and degradation, their uniforms were the last bastion of their identity, the last shred of personal dignity. To be stripped of them is to be stripped of everything. One older woman, a nurse with graying hair, steps forward and speaks in halting but clear German. Wir sind keine Tiere. We are not animals. The WWII sergeant doesn't understand the words, but she understands the tone. Her expression hardens. She barks an order, and two male guards stationed by the door step forward, their hands resting on the stocks of their shotguns. The message is clear. This is not a request. The German NCO's voice cuts through the tension. Do as you are told, now. The resistance crumbles. Slowly, hesitantly, with fumbling fingers, the women begin to undress. Eyes are fixed on the floor. No one looks at anyone else. Each woman retreats into a small, private world of shame. Annalise feels her cheeks burn. Her uniform, stiff with mud and grime, is peeled away. Then her undergarments, worn and thin. The cold air hits her bare skin, and she shivers, wrapping her arms around herself in a futile attempt to hide. The vulnerability is absolute. She is no longer Annalise Schmidt. She is not even number 74321. She is just a naked, pale body, indistinguishable from the others. They are herded like cattle towards an open doorway from which the steam and the sound of rushing water pour. They step through into a large, tiled room. Pipes run along the ceiling, fitted with dozens of shower heads. A WWII stands by a set of large valves on the wall. With a screech of metal, she turns a wheel. For a moment, nothing happens. The women flinch, anticipating a blast of icy water, another casual cruelty. Instead, a warm spray begins to fall, and then it gets hotter. It is not just warm, it is truly hot. A collective gasp rises from the women. Hot water. Not lukewarm, not heated for a few seconds over a fire, but endlessly, luxuriously hot. It is a sensation so forgotten it feels like a dream. The water sluices the layers of grime from her skin, running in brown rivers down her body, to the drain in the floor. And then the wax begin handing out small rectangular bars. Soap. Annalise takes one. It is rough, utilitarian, but as she turns it over in her hands and brings it to her skin, it begins to lather. A thick white foam. And the smell? It is not the harsh, rationed lye soap she vaguely remembers from home. It is a simple, clean scent, but it is the most powerful thing she has experienced in years. It is the scent of a normal life. It smells like her mother's laundry day before the war. It smells of peace, of home, of a world that no longer exists. The hot water, the endless supply, the impossible luxury of a full bar of soap, it is not a kindness. It is a statement. It is a demonstration of a power so vast, so casual, that it can provide this to its defeated enemies without a second thought. This simple act of hygiene becomes a crushing symbol of everything they have lost. The stark contrast between the years of deprivation, of making a single sliver of soap last for a month, and this effortless abundance is too much to comprehend. The scent of the soap triggers something deep inside Annalise, a dam of carefully suppressed emotion that she has held back for months, for years. A single hot tear traces a clean path through the dirt still on her cheek. Then another. A sob escapes her throat, a raw, ragged sound. She looks around through her blurred vision and sees she is not alone. The young woman next to her is weeping silently, her shoulders shaking. Across the room, the older nurse has her face in her hands, her body racked with deep, agonizing sobs. The room, which moments ago was filled with the rush of water, is now filled with a new sound, a rising chorus of female grief, a heartbreaking wail of despair that echoes off the tiled walls. The sound of weeping fills the steamy chamber, a raw, collective outpouring of grief that transcends language. The American WACs are visibly taken aback. They exchange confused, uncertain glances. They were prepared for resistance, for sullen compliance, for anger. They were not prepared for this. This is not defiance. It is a complete and total collapse. The stern-faced sergeant who had barked the orders now looks uncomfortable, her hands hovering uselessly at her sides. To her, this was a simple, necessary procedure: delousing, sanitation, a standard protocol for processing prisoners of war to prevent the spread of disease. She cannot possibly comprehend the complex calculus of trauma, deprivation, and cultural shock that has just detonated in this room. To her, it is just soap and hot water. To the German women, it is an epitaph for their entire world. A younger WAC, a corporal, steps forward tentatively and places a hand on the shoulder of a sobbing girl. The girl flinches away, her grief too private, too immense to be touched. The corporal retreats, her face a mixture of pity and bewilderment. There are no orders for this situation. The procedure continues, but the mechanical efficiency is gone, replaced by a clumsy, awkward silence punctuated by the sounds of sorrow. The water is turned off. The women are nudged forward with gentle, hesitant gestures now, not shoves. They are handed rough, olive-drab towels. The material is coarse against their clean skin. They are led into an adjacent room where piles of clothing are stacked on tables. Not their old, familiar uniforms. Those have been taken away to be burned. Instead, they are given U.S. Army surplus. Men's gray wool trousers, too large at the waist, tan work shirts with sleeves that are too long. Some receive shapeless cotton dresses. The clothing is clean, sterile, and completely anonymous. Annalise pulls on the rough trousers, the unfamiliar fabric scratching her legs. She is clean, but she feels more naked than before. Her uniform, filthy as it was a connection to who she was. This new clothing is a costume for a role she does not understand. She is a non-person, dressed in the cast-offs of her conquerors. As they file out of the sanitation block and back into the cold, damp air of the camp, the world seems different. The mud seems darker, the barbed wire sharper. The other prisoners, still clad in their dirty feldgrau, stare at them as they pass. Annalise and the other women from her group are now visibly different, marked by their cleanliness. They are a tribe apart. Back in the tent, the atmosphere is heavy and somber. The 30 women huddle in their strange new clothes, the initial hysteria having subsided into a deep, hollow exhaustion. Annalise sits on the cold ground, her knees drawn up to her chest. She can still smell the soap on her skin. It clings to her, an invasive, persistent scent. It is the scent of surrender. She finally understands. The breakdown in the shower was not just about the loss of privacy or the shock of unexpected comfort. It was the sudden, brutal clarity that those things brought. The soap and hot water were not just objects, they were evidence. They were proof that the world the Americans inhabited was one of plenty, of normalcy, of a strength so profound it could afford to be wasteful. For years, she and everyone she knew had been told that their hardship, their rationing, their sacrifice, ihr Entbehrung, was a sign of their moral strength and spiritual purity. They were told the enemy was decadent, soft, weak. But in that steamy room, that lie had been washed away along with the dirt. The enemy was not weak. The enemy had soap. The enemy had so much soap they could give it away to their prisoners. The enemy had so much hot water they could let it run down a drain. This simple, mundane fact was more devastating than any propaganda leaflet, more crushing than any military defeat. It signified a gap between their worlds that could not be bridged with courage or willpower. Their entire national struggle, their years of hunger and cold and loss, had been for nothing. They had been fighting a force whose resources were so bottomless that this act of basic hygiene was a routine triviality. The shower had stripped away more than their clothes. It had stripped away the last stubborn remnants of ideology, of pride, of belief in their cause. All that was left was the raw, aching truth of their utter and comprehensive defeat. Annalise closes her eyes, the clean, alien scent of the soap filling her senses. It is a scent she knows she will never forget. It is the smell of the end of the war and the beginning of a long, uncertain journey into a future she cannot even begin to imagine.